Welcome to Doc NYC and the special Q&A for the film Enemies of the State. I'm Tom Powers, the festival's artistic director. I'm pleased to be here with the film's director, Sonia Kennebeck, who's joining us from Brooklyn, and her producer, Ines Hofmann Kanna, who's in Oakland, California. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Sonia, I want to kind of frame this around your earlier film, National Bird. So that was a film about whistleblowers, and it brought you into this world of people who were being investigated by the US government and had an adversarial relationship with the US government. I wonder how making that film framed your way of thinking headed into making Enemies of the State.
Oh yeah, both of these films have a lot to do with each other. They deal with secrecy and government misconduct. So the family at the center of Enemies of the State, the Hart family, I had heard about their case while we were still in production for National Bird, about the drone program, and it just seemed so like such a unique, complex story that we kind of, Ines and I discussed the Hart case, and then we decided to, just finish this one film first. But then after National Bird came out, we circled back and we discussed the Hart case, which had so many layers and really was, kind of a true investigation.
Would it be safe to say that as you were headed into the DeHart investigation, there was a lot to the story you didn't know, and I'm wondering how deep into it you got before you started to accumulate the kind of key information that helps shape where this film winds up.
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that this was a story because of the events that unfolded. So at its core, the story is about Matt DeHart, who an alleged anonymous hacktivist and WikiLeaks courier, whose parents say that he was tortured by the FBI because of information that he had received, secret information that was bound for WikiLeaks. And on the other hand, there's the perspective of government prosecutors who say that he was a child predator, and and had child pornography. And so it, from the very beginning, this was a very complex, complicated case. But what was part of the story was that the entire family, first Matt DeHart tried to defect to the Russian embassy, and then the entire family applied for political asylum in Canada. So all of these things happened, and we had government information and records of FBI interrogations and mistreatment of him in jail. So we always knew this was a story. So we embarked, though, on the filming and the research without knowing the outcome. So what you actually see in the film is, our timeline of discovery and, everything we uncovered and researched along the way. It is a true investigation.
Ines, can you speak to Sonia's qualities as a director, as an investigator, as an interviewer, as a filmmaker, that lends itself so well to this kind of complicated storytelling?
Yes, absolutely. So I was super impressed when I met Sonia, and she had started working on National Bird, and the way she not only found her sources, but gained their trust. And remember, those people were anonymous at that time when she made National Bird. And it was just so impressive to me. And ever since, I really felt like, this is totally her wheelhouse. And she really excels at this, especially the part where you, more than in any other field or genre, you really have to build trust, right? I mean, we always say that about interviewing subjects and making documentary film, but it's even more important here because their life is on the line, their freedom is on the line, right? Things happen with whistleblowers in this country. And I always felt like that the approach Sonia took was exactly like how I felt like I needed to work with someone too. Very, very, appropriate to the subject matter and just thoughtful, and really always having the best interest of the subjects at heart, and that really drew me to working with Sonia. And of course she is also a great storyteller, and these films are always very, very interesting. And even if entertaining is not the totally right word for this, I think these films are really easy on the eye. They're beautifully shot and directed, and so it's been an honor to work on these films with Sonia.
Sonia, we're speaking a couple weeks after the film had its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival. And so now some of the people who are in the film have seen it, or at least had a chance to read reviews of it, and it's starting to be processed by the world. What has that meant for some of the people who are in the film? What have you heard back since it started to connect to audiences?
Yeah, we have been in touch with the people in the film, and what's kind of important to know, if you haven't seen the film, is that it has a lot of he said, she said. So this film is really, I think, very much like our reality, full of ambiguity. And so yes, we've tried to prepare our our lead characters for that and the outcome. And I do believe that, and that's the feedback that we have been getting from the people in the film, is that from the very beginning they knew that their story is full of complexity and there are different perspectives. And we told them from the beginning on we would try to cover it as broadly as possible and really from a journalistic perspective. And their reaction was really that's what they expected. They don't necessarily, support all the perspectives in the film. But yeah, I think, they appreciate our journalistic approach. And I also want to add, thank you, Ines, for, saying these kind words. Ines and I have worked together for a really long time. And our films, they are, what I always feel, and what we discuss, the films are the tips of the iceberg, and what's underneath it is tremendous research and years of work. And Ines and I and our creative team, we've really been, going through this journey together. Ines is an investigative journalist. Our director of photography is, a really great, meaningful cinematographer, and our editor, Maxine Gödecke, like her skills is really breaking down the complexity of such a story. And I really think these kind of high risk journalistic, exposés you can only, do independently when you have, a strong team doing it with you.
And then one note about external feedback we've gotten. So it was wonderful to see so many reviews coming in. And it's very interesting because critics are also just humans and they're also an audience, right? And to see the breadth of what they come back with and what they want from the film, it was so interesting to see to us how many people really, really want a clear answer. Like they want a wrap up at the end, maybe with a bow on top. And that's not what this film is, right? This film may be over, but these lives are not over. These are real people. And there's a lot more to this. And we can't just say it's this or that. And we noticed in the reviews how much people want that, and this is not that kind of film.
I wonder if you can talk about your executive producer, Errol Morris, who was also an executive producer on your last film, National Bird. Clearly, his history of being inventive in the way he visualizes his films, and especially visualizes the past, things that a camera wasn't present for, have had some influence on the way you approached aspects of this filmmaking. Can you talk about the influence of Errol Morris and what he's brought to helping you on these films?
Yeah, I mean, I admire Errol Morris's work, and especially Thin Blue Line, which I thought really expanded the storytelling and documentary film. And when we first started research on this story, so many elements of it reminded us of Thin Blue Line, kind of the contradictions, the way that when you start researching a story, a lot of especially in investigations, a lot of what leads to a truth can be found in the details of a story, in the very, not just the general timeline, but the specifics of the timeline, the minutes and the hours, and all of that, I think really goes back to what what Errol Morris was exploring, and Thin Blue Line also, memory and personal memory and people's different perspectives and so on. So it definitely influenced my work, but just as well, as I think there were a lot of other influences, like contemporary shows and films on hackers, for example, because I think a very common theme in film, but also sort of the experience of technology and hacking and this world is that it's really difficult to find verifiable truth on the internet, the way that information spreads, for example, and the difference between what you, like, the connections that you make over the internet and sort of the real life connections and the data and the information that you have. It has, like, this story itself has so many layers that really for me speak to the world that we live in today, where there's so much information and social media, and information's being repeated and spread throughout. And it's really when you start sort of at the end of a story and then try to uncover the sources, you realize how complicated it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then to add, like, I have to say that Sonia's creative process, though influenced by other filmmakers and films, and we all have that, I have to say it's still very, very unique. There's a lot of back and forth. I mean, we are a very, very small team, and very invested in these stories. And there's a lot of discussion of how can you tell something. Every film wants a different type of telling and visual language, right? And this is another great reason why I like working with Sonia, because her creative process and what she comes up with and what we talk about and how we get from A to B and what we end up with, it's just a lot of like it's wonderful. And how she draws from different fiction films also, it's just really, really great to see that at work.
Yeah, and what's actually really sort of important, I think, to understand about this film once you've watched it, is that it is a true hybrid between a documentary and these recreations. And so not everything that you think is a recreation might actually be one. And this, what we really wanted to tell with this film is that, in some cases the lines just blur, especially when you have, kind of paranoia coming in and surveillance and secrecy and so on. And so it's really intentional that, we sometimes filmed with the real family, and also, in fact, with the real Matt DeHart at the end of the film. And some of these scenes are, in fact, real. And even though people might think they are recreations, so it is this merging between, kind of this line, what is reality, what is perception, that is really intentional in this film.
Right. And just makes, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
this makes a lot, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because think about this family specifically and how they are framing their own story, their own narrative, or Matt. And what we found in our research is there's a lot of that going on, and there's a lot of like shaping it along the way, and inconsistencies and smaller things. And there's a lot of truth, and there's a lot of like, who knows, right? So this idea of this is what we found in the characters, but that's also reflected in the actual film itself. It makes, for this film, it makes perfect sense, even though some critics maybe meant a very clear line between this and that, right? But this is not what happened in our research either. There was no clear lines, right? Everything was very blurry, and not just on the family side, also on what we found the government side, you know. So it's really, this is like actually the perfect film where this is the right vehicle to tell the story.
For my last question, you know, if you got to put your hands on one more piece of information or do one more interview right now, what's the thing that you'd most like to know about this story?
Oh, I'm immediately thinking about two things.
You can do two.
So one is, you know, in terms of the information that I would like to gather, it is the FBI file. You know, we're still working on, you know, getting more information on this case, and I would love to see, you know, these other, you know, still classified interrogation summaries from the FBI of their interrogations of Matt DeHart. And then, of course, the second thing is, you know, to really have Matt DeHart sit down for a proper interview. I don't know, do you have the same, you know, kind of, you know, like what would you like to know, Ines?
No, the same, definitely. Yeah, those FBI files for sure. And then, you know, there's a lot of little things, Tom, like they're not even that crucial, but they are like naggy little things, you know, things where I'm like, why didn't we get further with this person? Or why did that person say no? Or what did she mean? Or what did he mean? And like where, you know, overall, it didn't matter that much, but those are things I still think about. There's certain people we talk to and they didn't go on the record, or they did hang up the phone, you know, and those are the people I'm still like, you know, so.
Well, I thank you both for this film and for bringing it to Doc NYC, and I look forward to more audiences discovering it.
Thank you so much, Tom.